Welcome to CRL.
Those are words that really inspire confidence about the game you just bought, eh? Welcome to CRL. Anyway, the Lukozer Supreme Shit Game Database entry number 8. And for this one, it is Black Shadow, which was released by CRL. And this was released in 1987. So it is an early-ish Amiga game. But let's keep one thing in mind. Despite it being early, you know, for Amiga standards, it is still a game that came out after the likes of Whizball, you know, and I think Revenge 2. You know, two great shoot 'em ups for the Commodore 64. And there is no reason why, even in its early days, the Amiga couldn't have done shoot 'em ups of that quality. And indeed, it did. Less than 6 months after this game came out, we got Hybris, which was fucking superb. You know, it's for a vertical scrolling shoot 'em up, which this also is. It was every bit as good, if not better, than most arcade coin-op vertical scrolling shoot 'em ups. It was fucking fantastic. It had everything. Great graphics, great audio, fantastic music, great sound effects. The gameplay was spot on. It had everything. This does not have everything. In fact, what this has is I am actually struggling to put into words. It is, to this day, the very epitome of just how little CRL cared about the quality of the fucking shit that they churned out. And I have never, and I'm including modern day games for this, I have never seen a game so badly coded as this fucking piece of shit. Modern games today are bugs to fuckery, and you know, and they're released unfinished all the time. But that is the root cause of its problems. They are released unfinished and with bugs in. This game was not unfinished. This game does not have any bugs in it, or at least none that I have encountered so far. So everything that is utter fucking shite about this game is there by design. And that is something you've got to keep in mind throughout this. Everything you are seeing was designed to be as it is. I am not exaggerating one bit when I say that if this was the first 16-bit game you played, you would have hoped that 16-bit computing was a novelty that couldn't fucking die fast enough. Because this is insulting. It's insulting to Commodore or whoever it was who actually developed the Amiga before Commodore got the rights to it. it's insulting to the people who paid well over 500 quid for their Amiga. I mean, I got my Amiga in 87. Got it, actually, it was around my birthday in 87. But I think it was a combination birthday and Christmas present. I think it was about 550 quid. So it's an insult to the people who paid that kind of money, you know, for their Amiga. And then it's a further insult to the fact, or to people who paid 25 fucking quid to buy this fucking insulting shit. So, the game is loaded up. Then we are presented with this title page, which is pretty sparse. No music at all. In fact, the only music in the entire game is that short jingle you heard at the start before you then hear the dreaded words, "Welcome to CRL." That's it. That's the only music in the entire game. There are no sound effects anywhere on this title page either. It's all in total silence. And it is not very intuitive, but right, what you need to do is you can't use your joystick to make any selections. You move the joystick around, press fire button, nothing happens. So you got to use the mouse. So right, you can have one or two players. Amazingly, it has two-player simultaneous mode. You do, however, not under any circumstances want to play this game simultaneous two-player. I'll show you why at some point in this video. So yeah, you move the mouse left and right to make the change. Press fire and you go on to the next option, which is to change the drawing. This option and this image is only put there as their attempts to show what the Amiga can do, and that genuinely is the only graphical feature in this game that comes close to showing what an Amiga can do. This fucking shitty, I think it is digitized. So yeah, you can change between the male and the female. Also the same with player 2, who is the blue player. If you're looking at the blue player's image and thinking he does look familiar, yeah, he does. It's player 1, but they've just drawn a false beard on him. And yet that's still, the most impressive thing about this game. In fact, if we just quickly change it so you can see player 2, if it's female, yeah, they drew in the hand. And that's it. Obviously they've mirrored the images, but yeah, that's it. So anyway, let's change them back. Now you have to keep cycling through all of the options. You can't just move it, I mean, the Amiga has the mouse cursor by default. Why couldn't they just let us use, the mouse, seeing as they've insisted on it being mouse controlled? Just move the mouse around, move the cursor to whatever, So, okay, well, the default controller is mouse. I don't want to use mouse, so we'll change it to joystick. Okay, and we've got it set for one player. Okay, so we then change that from the cross to the tick, which means that the options are all right. Now for these first few goes, I know it's asking the impossible, but I want you to just ignore what the game looks like and plays like and just focus on something in particular. So for this one I'm using the joystick for player 1. I'm pressing the joystick fire button and nothing is happening. So you still got to use the mouse, press fire, and here we go. Right, so I'm now using the joystick. The joystick isn't doing anything. Move the mouse. It's still taking mouse inputs. Right, so you lose life and it sends you back to the start of the level. And yeah, because it is still using mouse input, even though I've got joystick selected, I'm just gonna, you know, try and get my game over. And there we go. Right, game over. And it just dumps you straight back to this options page. So, even though I selected the joystick, the joystick wasn't working. It was still using mouse controls. So what does that mean? That means that if you are playing this as a single player game, what you have to do is disconnect your mouse and plug in the joystick into port 1. If you do it any other way, or if you're playing with the joystick in port 2, like you would do for every other game that was ever released for the fucking Amiga, it doesn't work. You've got to have the joystick plugged into port 1, which is the mouse port. Only now does the actual inputs actually get recognised. So what we will do this time is, I've got to now put that back to the X so I can start it. We'll start a 2-player game. And we've got it set so that both players are using joysticks. So it should be player 1 using joystick in port 1 and player 2 the joystick in port 2. It should actually be the other way round, but no. So every time you loaded this game up, you had to disconnect the mouse and plug the joystick in. Into port 1. Right, let's get this game underway. So here we are. So I'm playing away, but player 2 is a bit shit. But because player 2 loses a life, the whole level gets restarted. And this is why I say you do not want to play this game 2-player co-op, because if one of you loses a life, the whole game gets restarted again. That was even shorter than I thought it would be. So let's try sending the oops. Oh, bollocks. Okay, right, we'll get another quick game underway. It won't last very long. So yeah, again, so player 1, but player 2 is really shit. And so yeah, lose that one. And there we go. So now let's right, so player 2 is now using the mouse, which means player 2 is now going to go a bit haywire, but at least he'll move, so we might actually get somewhere. So you get the real sense of, how much gaming pleasure there is from playing 2-player co-op with this game. Here we go. So player 2, fucking typical, player 2 now isn't moving at all. And of course, if player 2 was going to use the mouse, you've got to plug the mouse into port 2, not the actual mouse port. Okay, what we'll do, we'll put player 1 onto mouse and player 2 onto joystick, which means I've now got a fucking mouse there, joystick into port 2. Right. Let's try it now. So now I am player 2. So here we go, and yeah, blasting away. This one goes lasting a bit longer. Player 1 lost life, and yeah, it brings us both back to the fucking start. So if you know, player 1 makes a mistake and you happen to have been making some sort of progress in the game, you both get hauled back to the beginning, because the game has restart points. Or actually, I say the game has restart points. I've never actually been able to progress far enough to see if it has restart points, or if you have to actually get through the entire level in one life. Otherwise it keeps hauling you back to the beginning. It certainly looks like that is the case. So, like I said at the start, it is some of the shittiest game coding I've ever seen. Why the fuck would they, you know, set it so that, well, firstly, so that you've got to physically switch the fucking joysticks around, or switch, you know, the mouse port around. So you've got to plug the joystick into your mouse port if you want to play the game with the joystick. You can play it with a mouse. Actually, what I'm going to do, we'll have a one-player game now, but I'll start by using the mouse. Okay, so let's yeah, that we'll put the mouse put this back onto mouse control. There we go. Right, so here we go then. We'll have a one-player game, and this is using the mouse controller. So and it's all I'm doing is moving the mouse left and right. I'm not moving up or down at all, but it's sending me all over the fucking place. So they seem to have it set up to be played with the mouse, and then they've coded it so badly that the mouse inputs are just completely fucking bollocksed up. And we go back to the start of the level. The very start, because, you know, it's always such a popular feature in a game, that is, isn't it? When you lose a life, go straight back to the start of the fucking level. Right, let's just lose all my lives, and I'm moving it left, right rather, and it's doing this. So not only have they programmed it to have to use the mouse as the default control option, but they then have programmed it so badly that the game is utterly unplayable using the mouse. So we'll go and fucking switch the ports around and put the fucking joystick into the mouse port, and we can finally have a go where we actually have some sort of control over how well, you know, we can actually move. Here we go. Now, yep, the controls are actually responding. So even though they have it set so that the default control, and it almost looks like the preferred control method is the mouse, this is about the only way you are actually able to control the game. because anything else is just a fucking waste of time. So now that we've got the controls sort of, sorted out, or as close to sorted out as possible, we then actually finally get to look at the game. And then you realise, what the fucking fuck is this shit? You have just paid £25 fucking pound, and this is what you are presented with. This is CRL's idea of a 16-bit fucking shoot 'em up. They could not have got it moving any fucking slower. Your shots are as every bit as slow as everything else in the game. And once you fire, if your shots don't hit anything, they go right way to the top of the screen. You can't fire again until they have done so. And then you get instantly destroyed by something that's on the side of the screen there, which you didn't even see. You can take 3 hits before you finally lose a life. But as well as the multitude of fucking, whatever these completely random objects that are moving around the screen, whatever they're supposed to be, you can take up to 3 hits from them. But also, you can fly into some of the ground-based objects, and they will damage you, but you do not have the faintest fucking clue as to which objects you can fly over and which ones you can't. And I'll illustrate that now. Just flying along, trying to make some progress here. Now you see this big red building I'm approaching. You can fly over most of it until you get there, and then this object, the building that is right in front of it, that building you can't fly over. You crash into it and take hits. So, right, there we go. So you keep hitting the top of that building. And of course, because when you take a hit, but you don't lose a life straight away, but it keeps you in the same spot, which means you're still flying over the top of that building, which took your first 2 hits off you. And it's going to then take the second and third hits off you in pretty quick succession. Then there is the bomb that you fire, a la Xevious, which is launched at such a slow fucking speed. It seems to take fucking forever to actually get to, I say it gets to its target. I mean, you cannot aim with it. You're basically just, because you're so busy constantly hammering on the fire button to try and shoot at these fucking 1,000,001, we'll call them aliens for generosity's sake, but they are just completely random objects. And these things are utterly relentless. They do not fucking ease off at all. So you're so busy trying to shoot them, you can't really aim at all with your ground bombs. Oh, fucking what? This is also as far up the screen as you can move, so you can only get to halfway up the screen there. So essentially, your actual playing area is, well, it's already quite small because of the large amount of space that's taken up either side by constantly pointing out that, yeah, one of you is using joystick and one's using mouse, and then you score, and then this fucking utterly pointless digitised picture. Oh, fucking hell. And then another fine example of how well this is coded. I mean, this is a shoot 'em up, which means it's all about getting score and getting, you know, your high score. There is no high score table at all. There is nowhere on screen at any point where it shows you what the highest score is, you know, even if it's just the one top score. No. Once your game is over, you've got to like memorise your score, because once it's off screen, so 127,200, okay, and it's gone. It's not recorded anywhere. There is nothing in the way of showing you what your high score is. I mean, I've reviewed I don't know how many fucking CRL games, and they have all been shit. Absolute fucking shit. But this is insulting. I mean, I have had some developers of games comment on my reviews, and even when it's been reviews where I've basically said that I think the game is shite. R-Type 2 is a good example. I then got a comment from the guy who did the graphics for that one. He took it fine, you know. Yeah, you're saying he said along the lines of he's amazed anybody's even still playing it. More recently, I got a comment on my review for Zoids, the Commodore 64 game, and he's just basically saying, oh, I'm sorry that you didn't like the game and all that, but yeah, he took it fine. Which is more than most people who just simply bought the game and played it did, because you're supposed to be fucking grown adults, you bunch of fucking pricks. But, you know, so, yeah, I absolutely tore that game to shreds. But, yeah, he took it just fine and all that. So if there is anyone who was from CRL watching this, and even more so, if you're one of the people who helped develop this, have the balls to write a comment and answer this question. How the fuck did you possibly justify releasing this? Because I cannot see any way. I realise, yeah, okay, 87. This is a game that was released, 32 years ago. But it still fucks me off that they actually had the nerve to do so. Clearly, no one playtested this utter fucking festering shit at any point during its development. Because if they had, there is no fucking way that someone was so fucking stupid that they would have taken a look at this, having tested it, and said, yes, that's great. That's what we want. We're going to release it like that. It is totally unplayable, and that's even if you just overlooking the bullshit control problems from having a fucking unplug your mouse and plug your joystick into what is effectively the mouse port. And then once you've gone through all of that fucking bullshit, this is what you're presented with. There is absolutely no justification for releasing this fucking shit. There are public domain games even released at the same time that this was, in '87. And like I say, just less than 6 months later, Hybris came along. And we already had Warhawk released for the Commodore 64, a game that cost just £2. And it is vastly superior to this. In fact, we also had, for the Commodore 64, released by Mastertronic in 1985, Orbitron, which, okay, is a shit game. Because, I mean, it was just made using Game Creator. But it is still a vast improvement over this fucking shite. I mean, this game really is a fucking insult. How the fuck could CRL seriously justify this? And when you bear in mind the amount of shit that CRL released, and this is by a fucking mile the worst thing they ever published. And this was for the Commodore Amiga. This was a game that they charged £25 for. The Commodore 64 could have done this in its sleep, and if it had been released for the Commodore 64, no one would have gone near it because it was utter shit. But on the 64, it would have cost £10. And that was still a fucking con. There you go, Black Shadow for the Commodore Amiga. I mean, it just defies belief. Do not download the disc image of this game. Do not think, oh, just for, you know, fun, I'll give it a try. No, don't do that. Like I said in another one of my videos, you don't have to rub dog shit into your face to know that it's a fucking shit thing to do. Likewise, you do not have to play this fucking load of bollocks to know what a fucking monumental cunt fest it absolutely is. If you have an Amiga or emulator and you really do feel the need to, experience this, okay, I'll save you the bother of downloading it. You can easily replicate it. So what you do is you open up the case of your Amiga or your PC if you do, if you use emulators. You then down 2 or 3 bottles of Senecot. You then wait about half hour, 45 minutes. Then you drop your trousers and you squat over your computer. And the result is precisely what CRL did when they released this and had people loading it up. The difference is they charged you £25 for that. So, yeah, Black Shadow for the Commodore Amiga from CRL. I mean, I know I'm not going to hear from anyone from CRL justifying releasing this, but I fucking really want to. But I mean, there's nothing they can say that would, actually justify it. There are VIC-20 shoot-em-ups that are infinitely superior to this. There are Atari 2600 shoot-em-ups which are infinitely superior to this. And they, well, the VIC-20 games would be, what, at least 4 years old, anywhere from 6 to 4 years old. Atari 2600 games would be anywhere from, well, up to 10 years old, and they were vastly superior. I'll say, if this was the first 16-bit computer game you ever played, you would have quite rightly thought or hoped that the 16-bit thing was just a fad that would die, and the sooner the better. Yeah. Another winner from CRL. So yeah, because this is in the shit game database, I am spared having to come up with a numerical score, because there is no. Even if I did the old, CRL out of 10, that still does not come close to, showing what an insulting fucking cunt wipe of a game this is. So, there we go. That is that one done. I genuinely do not believe that I could ever find another game for this particular playlist that I have as much contempt of as I have for this one. This is, I mean, it's so shit. To me, it's not even funny. Sorry, it's insulting. Yeah, I just. Yeah, well, I know that whatever the next game that I cover is, it will be better than this. Even if I go back and redo cassette 50, it will still be better than this. That's as good a place as any to bring this one to an end.